Greetings and welcome to the OneSoft Solutions Inc. webinar. It is now my pleasure to introduce your host, Mr. Brandon Taylor, President and COO. Thank you, Mr. Taylor. You may begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Brandon Taylor. I'm the President and CEO of OneSoft Solutions. We are a SaaS software company focused on recurring revenue. Our solution, Cognitive Integrity Management, or CIM, as you'll hear me refer to it as, is a mission-critical enterprise-level solution for oil and gas pipeline operators. It's been validated and deployed by our clients who are Fortune 500, 100, and in one case, a super major. We now have over 51,000 miles under subscription. Roughly 246 integrity engineers use our solution daily as their primary solution for work. Our mission is to predict pipeline failures, save lives, and protect the environment with the assistance of data science and machine learning. We're playing a pivotal role in the digital transformation that is currently underway in this industry today. Some key takeaways on this slide specifically: OneSoft has a $50.6 million market cap, super strong balance sheet with zero debt and $9.7 million in cash with high insider ownership of 34%. For those who've been following the company, please bear with me if you've heard parts of our presentation before, but I will discuss some new developments as we go through it. For new followers who may not be familiar with OneSoft, welcome. OneSoft has been listed on the TSX-V for over 21 years with lots of history and success. I would encourage you to visit our website to view that chronology, but most importantly, our management team's been working together since 2004, and we've been working with Microsoft for over 18 years. In the fall of 2015, OneSoft was selected as one of 9 companies to participate in their very first machine learning and data science accelerator or incubator. And since launching, we continue to collaborate with their industry team on strategic initiatives and work every deal with their field sales teams around the world. The relationship is now stronger than ever. In fact, independently this year, just recently, we are awarded the Partner of the Year finalist for runner-up for application innovation on Azure. That's an award that is worldwide, and it really speaks to the volume of the solution that we have in place. And we believe we have a very significant competitive moat with no other machine learning solution been commercialized to date, and we don't really see anybody in our rearview mirror. PHMSA, who sits under the Department of Transportation, stands for Pipeline Hazardous Safety Materials Act, is a U.S. regulator that regulates oil and gas pipeline operators today, and they require them to report data to them on an annualized basis. And the report shows some very discouraging metrics over the last 20 years. On average, a pipeline incident occurs somewhere in the United States every little over 1.5 days, 1.8 in 18, 1.7 in 17, that leads to injuries and fatalities. And the cost can be very significant, with 2 of the major failures over the last 20 years over $1 billion each. We believe that the industry, the only plausible way to stop these failures is specifically through data science and machine learning. Today, the industry's been asking operators to collect data with the tool called Pipeline Inspection Gauge, or PIG. You see that on the left of this slide. Operators, this tool has odometer wheels on it, an array of sensors based on the technology, whether it's magnetic or UT. There's different tool vendors that make these hardware devices. The pipeline operator will contract with these. They insert it into a launch valve. The product actually pushes it down the pipe, and then they take it out and they aggregate this data. If you're a liquid operator within the U.S., you have to run these devices on your pipeline every 5 and gas every 7. After they get this data, they deliver to the operator an Excel sheet, and typically engineers will then take that Excel sheet, look at when they previously ran this, compare these, and they're looking for anomaly growth rates, so they're manually trying to, or macros within Excel, compare these numbers. It's very inefficient, very costly. Most importantly, they filter out about 95% of the data. Just to give you some sense, 4 of our customers, including a super major, are running this process using Microsoft Excel. Now, just to talk about how this is done within our solution, I want to give you a little background. I have a demo to basically walk you through that. But following the accelerator, we engaged with Phillips 66, who was our first beta client. They gave us a bunch of their data to analyze, very progressive company. And they built a system in-house over the last 16 years that managed most of this process, except they didn't have any machine learning or data science. When they gave us the data in 2016, they went and did excavations, proved our results, went live with us in January, where they gave us 10,000 miles of their pipe in January of 17, and then through that year, understanding what our solution did, they actually transferred their IP, their intellectual property, from their on-premise solution to us, gave us funding, and with Microsoft, we moved that to Microsoft's cloud, engaged a couple other pipeline operators in early 18 to make sure that what we built was both horizontal and wide enough across the entire industry so we could scale it. We did that and launched that solution, which is what we call Cognitive Integrity Management 3.0 in late of 18. And that's the version that we have continually iterated on since then. I want to play a little bit of a demo and walk you through what this does. So this is the solution. Operators only need a browser. You can see that we have a bunch of Power BI dashboards and heat maps. It shows you all kinds of different metrics related to the entire pipeline system of an operator, where it is. You can actually do what Microsoft calls natural Q&A, so you can ask, as long as the data is in there, any type of questions, how many anomalies are growing at 50%. It handles the whole planning process, so you can actually plan all of your tool runs that you're going to have to do over those 5 or 7 year periods. And then you can literally just drag and drop files right into the solution. So whether that's the preliminary tool run or the final, once you drop it in, all of our algorithms will run automatically, so it kind of shows the depth. And then most importantly, after those have dropped in and we've ingested and normalized that data, you can go and do what we call integrity compliance, which is basically, am I regulatory compliant, immediate 60-day, 180-day, industry specific. We share these conditions across all of our customers, so it's kind of best practice within industry, and then company specific, and then finally our algorithms can run. And they'll know this within minutes. So from the time that they get that tool run, they'll know which conditions are potential threats on their pipeline and where they're in regulatory compliance. And we have a bunch of viewers and different kind of analyses that they can do within the system to basically do true engineering versus just data manipulation. So it shows them where that threat is, and they call these HCAs, or high consequence areas. And you can actually see different patterns based on what we're showing. So you can see these patterns you would never see in Excel. So they're able to analyze this low-level corrosion, where this joint to pipe is, and they hadn't been able to do that before. So that kind of gives you a sense on what the solution does, and it continues to evolve every week. As Microsoft determined prior to us inviting us to participate in their accelerator, they quickly identified that this is actually $1 billion opportunity before we knew that it was. If you look at the U.S. market, there's roughly about $637 million spent on an evaluation. That's our sweet spot, that green piece of the pie. Some portion of inspection, some on maintenance. Globally, it's a $1.1 billion opportunity just on the green slice, and we'll talk a little more about this as we drill into it. Our initial focus is on U.S. specific, lots of regulations, it's intentional, it's highly regulated environment. There's roughly 2.7 million miles of pipe in the U.S., 600 so in our immediate sweet spot that has this inline inspection of the data that comes from that tool. Our current focus as of the beginning of this year, we have early adopters, those on what we would call the left side of the chasm. In March, we started to formalize that. We believe now our solution is wide enough and deep enough that basically it's going to be hard-pressed to have new operators come on and we not have the functionality in the solution that's needed. So we've actually started in March of this year formalizing the commercialization of CIM, and most importantly, sign new customers, sign them up quickly, and onboard them quickly. I'll talk about this in the next slide, but in March we hired a new VP of Sales to start that evolution process. And we're actively working with Microsoft continuously on deals. Our partner model is working pretty well. In fact, that we're actually looking in Australia and a whole bunch of global opportunities through partners now. And our consumption economic model, this year we're actually doing more. We built crack facilities to be able to run crack tools, and we're actually getting additional revenue through those, and we expect to have more of those as we go. We just started a proof of concept about bringing other data sets in. So as you can anticipate, they run these tools, they do repairs, they have pipe property data, and then there's a bunch of other data sets out there that we're now starting to adjust and starting to experiment on data science projects related to if their correlation around soil, depth of cover of the pipe, those types of things. So all those things are happening now. And then most importantly, PHMSA is enacting new regulations as the digital transformation occurs, as data management. They want to make sure that you can do analytics. Is your data correct? Was the tool good? And all of that is basically being tracked within our opportunities. We have roughly over 300,000 miles identified in the sales pipeline. Actively, we have production trials I'm going to talk about in the next slide on what we've done to basically optimize and make this more McDonald's-style kind of commercialization process. So let's talk about that slide a little bit. So for new for 2020, again, I mentioned this early adopter. We've moved more into commercialization. So we've hired a new VP, started in March, a new VP of Sales. COVID has had an impact, as well as did the oil in the February, March, April timeframe. What we wanted to make sure is we were in a position as we came out of that, which we've since done. So we've hired a technical sales manager, lead gen team, and we've adopted a whole new strategy as far as what we'll call the evolution to commercialize this at scale. And two main components there that we're driving towards is a production trial, and we really got that down pretty pat. And as part of that, a key component is cost savings, both explicit and implicit. The way that process works is we have an initial meeting. From there, we can get an NDA signed, a production trial, and they will deliver data to us. 1 week later, we schedule a meeting where we do a kickoff, and this is where the prospect would take us through their existing process, whether that's Excel-based or some other type of system. Then following week after that, we basically show them results, which include our cost-saving model and their data in our solution. So from start of that process to the end, it's about a 3-week cycle. Now the cost savings is really important. I'm going to talk about that in the next slide, but what we've really done is standardized and made that so we can repeat and scale that process across. And the lead gen is super important. We actually have now got to the point where we're averaging almost what we call first meetings. So we're filling that top of the funnel and making sure that we can basically bring that down as we go through. And we want to talk about all of the things that are happening globally as well. So we have evolution on not only the Microsoft relationships, but partners, very active in Latin America, Argentina, Australia. So we're moving in those directions, which is driving us to metrics, potentially language, all of those normal things, so we can scale this globally. Our cost savings and business value, I'm not going to talk about the specific each one of these buckets they apply to CIM in general on where operators can save money. I think the main primary categories that we want to talk about is that there hasn't been a production trial where we haven't been able to take each one of these buckets, and whether you mix and match them, there's not cost savings. So integrity compliance is an example, is where our solution, once we load their data, will identify threats that they may not know about. And we communicate to those, and we assign a value to that based on PHMSA's average cost of an event. Dig management is the same thing. We'll identify digs. They'll tell us which digs they've done, and CIM would have not suggested those digs. So we can save them money on where they wouldn't have had to done a dig. And then we've even gone further. If you look at our repair fraction, there's links in this PowerPoint if you want to download it, where we've shown mathematically that basically we can reduce that they're doing the right digs, and we can show them didn't do the right digs. So every 1% that we show them, the reduction in that ratio is a 1% improvement into their dig budget. And just to give you some sense of the numbers, we'll flush these out. We've done averages across our customers, but we've seen production trials where CIM can save them $1.5 million to $6.5 million on an annualized basis. And then now they go do SME work to validate these findings. We'll go to the next slide now. So really our focus, and we're communicating this more in our MD&As, is that on this dotted line, for us, this is CIM ARR. We left the green line on this slide because we believe that over time we'll continue to have these one-off revenue hits. But our real focus on a day-to-day and everything that we drive from an operations perspective is to try to drive that number. We're really trying to basically double our CIM ARR year over year. And we announced a few weeks ago, or at our last thing, is that we've got our innovation lab up to speed. So you've seen that release where we're basically trying to fast track the identification, development of new prototype solutions. And as we do that, we're specifically focused on those projects that can increase our TAM as well as immediately drive CIM ARR. So we'll do those kind of projects so we can actually get driving additional CIM ARR, so we can basically focus on this line. And you can see the numbers. I won't go over these too much. You can have slides to those, and if you have questions, we can talk about those. I mentioned the Innovation Lab. We basically established this this year. We wanted to make sure that we could focus that and identify that. Existing, as you can anticipate, we're new into these operators, and not only just what we showed, but there's all kinds of other what we call white space, and we wanted to be able to set structure up and not disrupt our CIM ARR business. So we established an innovation lab so we can make sure that we keep aware and keep apprised of new opportunities that could then further increase both TAM outside of oil and gas, so water, sewer, and additionally within CIM, so different data sets, different technology, all of those types of things. We did set that up, and we have multiple projects underway, and we're seeing lots of good traction related to the non-piggable pipe, and COVID unfortunately paused that a little bit, but that'll start back up. We've got tool runs going where we can bring that data in and start analyzing it, and different partnerships that we see within this space here as far as kind of what that TAM looks like. Some investment highlights, just to talk about this first mover advantage. We go to conferences, we look at competitors. We definitely have a first mover advantage. We feel just from cloud alone, we probably have a couple from picking up the Philips IP, 3 to 5 years, took them 16 years to build that. We are ingesting this data, and we're looking at DaaS kind of models, so data as a service. Today we have over 60 million pipe features. We've iterated on our algorithms over 65 times. So lots of opportunities and patterns that we'll start identifying that other operators, or that just in regulatory environment, aren't even known because there's no data at this volume. So we're sharing that learning across all of the operators. We started with our conditions a couple of years ago. We had 95. We have over 200 conditions that are shared across all of our operators. So it's super important to see that. And we're seeing less concern on cloud now more than ever. I mean, there's a definite trend on digital transformation. Super high operating margin from a SaaS perspective. You know, our models show greater than 50% EBITDA at 10 million revenue. We've got partnerships that come into us quite frequently. Some look very encouraging. We've got a very clean cap structure, and the management's aligned with the shareholders. Insiders own 34%. 23 of it is owned by management. So hopefully that gives you a sense. We've left 5 minutes here on for Q&A, and I've got that open. If we do have questions, feel free to post them, and I'll respond to them. 4 minutes. Got an email from Dan. Yes, we our PowerPoint. We can send you that, Dan. I've got your note on that. Any other questions? Doubling the question is the doubling the revenue target does include the deferred revenue recognition? No. Our doubling the revenue, like when we get to do that, is a little more challenging. Depends, you know, some of that is at the operator's discretion. As those that people who do follow it typically will sign multi-year contracts, and at the time they typically will pay us up front, and then we start onboarding them. We have spent the last year working tremendously on our onboarding. We're hoping at a large operator, you know, our next kind of engagement, we'll do a 2 to 3 month thing, but we'll get the cash, the revenue will start, and our licensing model from the subscription component, we can recognize that, but there's one-time fees that we have to wait till we onboard, and then there's the loading through the year. So our revenue objective is really to focus on not deferred, but just the recognized revenue. Deferred is not going to be the doubling. I think hopefully that answers the question. Another question is, we're working opportunities, how far? These are in various stages. Historically, as we've moved through this commercialization strategy, we have really optimized that so that we can maybe start getting some guidance at future points when we feel comfortable about that process is working. But you know, we have prospects that are at the first meeting to in process of legal reviewing that NDA and the production trial agreement, to some that have already given us data and we've done results. And once you give them results, you know, and just so everybody understands, in this industry, this is a very pivotal time, and it's a budgeting cycle. So they're looking at these kind of things, and they're looking at bigger long-term strategic things that they're trying to do just around digital transformation, other projects, etc. So we're not giving any guidance on how many of them are within each stage. Price per mile can be in 5 to 10 years. We got a lot of stuff going in Innovation Lab that suggests that, you know, that is going to change, and what we don't know, and we're not giving any guidance on, is, you know, is it going to be double, triple? Are there any things that we can? So we don't know yet. We know that our consumption economic model is incrementally increasing that per mileage that we can charge. We have made some adjustments to our pricing model. You know, we do a per log and a per mile, and we've done some changes to that. So it's hard to say if we could get definitive on, and we're trying to get that so people can model out what that per mile can be. But we'd have to be further along to be able to project that and answer that question. Next question is, has there been a lot of activism on Keystone XL and Enbridges? Actually, it's been very positive for our business because it basically means, you know, we're running on older pipes and they have to keep them in business for longer. So we like that. That's where our value is based on these tool runs on the old pipe where there's corrosion and stuff like that. So I think that's the end of the questions. And time, I should say, as well. So Keith, it's 11:25. I know you wanted to wrap up then. I think that'll be. Thank you, everybody.
This concludes today's webcast. You may disconnect your lines at this time. Thank you for your participation and have a great day.